वीर्यंकरवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः।
Swami, you have to unmute because someone was saying I muted. Swami, you have to unmute.
I did it.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम् तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते त्वनुं स्वाम् नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम् यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम्। The self, ayam atma, the self nalabhyaha, is not gained by these things. Teacher Rishi enumerates by which you cannot get the self. Na pravachanena labhyaha, mere recitation of Vedas, you don't get the self. Na medhaya, nor by memory, mere memory. Na bahuna shrutena, not by study of various disciplines of knowledge. How it is gained? Yama esha vrunute. Yam, whom? Esha, this Atma, vrunute. He chooses or selects. Then the person who chooses to know, tasaisa vivrunute tanum swam, self reveals itself to that person. That means choosing the self is the means for knowing the self. When you see the words, don't interpret through with vernacular language. Na pravachane na labhya. You don't get by lectures. It is pravachana. Here doesn't mean lecture. Bhagavan Bhashyakara writes, Veda Shastra Adhyayana Bahulyena Pravachanena Nalabhya. Okay? Shastra, Veda Shastra Adhyayana Bahulyena. A typical Hindu is supposed to, it is mandated that he or she should study the Veda of his or her Gotra. That is a Rishi Runam. There is a mandate, Swadhyayo Adhyetavyaha. One must study Swadhyaya, one must commit to Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means one's own Veda. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. One should not have pramada for Swadhyaya and pravachana. So here, basically, Swadhyaya means Vedic study, Vedic recitation. One should not. Last time I had mentioned, to study one's own one Veda was enough to consume the whole lifetime. And therefore, who could make it to 2 Vedas? It's rare made it to 3 Vedas. And rarest could make it to all the 4 Vedas. They were given title. Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi. This Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi, nowadays it is used as a surname. But it's not a surname, it's a title. The pravachana doesn't mean discourses. Pravachana means studying the Veda and capacity to recite. One has to recite these Vedas daily. By merely memorizing the whole Veda or merely reciting the whole Veda, you do not gain Atma. We have seen this in earlier also. Dve vidye veditavye parachaiva aparacha. Tatra apara Rugvedaha, Yajurvedaha, Samaveda, Atharvedaha, and Shiksha, Kalpa, Chanda, Nirukta, Vyakarana, Jyotisham, Iti. All the 4 Vedas belong to Aparavidya. And it is only the Paravidya that gives moksha. When at that time also we had discussed in the beginning when we started this teaching this Upanishad, one must study the Vedas and one must recite the Vedas. Mere capacity to know the Vedic mantras, mere capacity to recite the Vedic mantras is certainly a glory, is certainly extra capacity. It certainly is a blessing. And capacity to chant the Vedas is great punya karma. One need not do any other upasanas. One need not do any other japas, I mean, East Guru Mantra or etc. Mere recitation of Veda is enough for Antakarana Shuddhi. Mere recitation of Veda is enough for Chitta Naischalyam. The 2 doshas, Ashuddhi and Chanchalta, Durikaranartham. Restlessness of the mind and impurities of the mind can be addressed by merely reciting the Vedas daily. And people used to do. And you will enjoy it also. It gives a laya. It gives a saumanasyatvam. What is saumanasyatvam? You just listening gives you cheerfulness. You become just happy by listening. If somebody recites them according to swaras, whatever swaras are there for Vedas. And therefore, when you hear this Ganapatha or these various pathas, you really enjoy, Ganana, Antva, Ganana, Ganana, they go on and on. It gives a different type of joy. It is certainly achievements. And these Vedic Pandits, our whole tradition is that we have to memorize it. It is all oral tradition. Therefore, Veda is called Shruti. As I mentioned last time, teacher's mouth is a printing press, and student's mind is a paper on which the things are printed. Then that's how we learned. When I went to ashram, this chanting of Rudram and Taitriyam and what all little things we learned, when our Panditji never allowed us to keep the book. Don't look at the book. Just listen to me and repeat it twice. And that's how the tradition is, and that is why all the Shastras have survived for millennia. Vedas have survived. And because it is to be chanted according to swaras. Swaras can be mentioned on a paper, but how exactly it is to be pronounced, that can be communicated only when you chant. And that those days when the paper was not there, it has to be memorized. Not only Vedas, all our Shastras, all Ashtadasha Puranani, and all Vedangas, Kalpa Shastra, Shiksha, Kalpa, Chandasa Shastra, Jyotisha Shastra, etc. All these Vedangas and all other Shastras, Upavedas, Gandharva Veda, Atharva Veda, etc. All were, they have sustained because they were memorized. Our history, which is Ramayana and Mahabharata, is available today with us because they memorized it. And there was a great value to memorize this. And people commit to them. I know many people, they like, and when I was a brahmachari, I remember I liked to memorize. We used to do whatever Swamiji would say, and now after this Upanishad, I'm going to teach this one or this chapter. When we see that 5th chapter of Gita or 3rd, whatever, is coming to an end, before that comes to an end, we used to memorize the next one. It should be ready with us. Mantras, all Upanishad mantra, Veda mantras, and of course Gita Shastra. And whatever text he took, we just memorized. There was a value for memorization. And these Pandits, I have met them. Some of them, Pandits, especially in South, there are people who commit to these Vedas and they memorize very well. I've met some of them in 90s and later on, when those days, very few Pandits used to go to US. And this fellow, Puja Swami told one of them, you come there, there is a job in such and such a temple and you join there. You come. I'll organize you everything for you, visa and appointment and paper and all that. So he told me that, Swamiji, after 6 months, I'm going and things like that. I said, you know English? Well, I don't know. He said, how will you communicate? He told me, Swamiji, I will memorize whole dictionary. English dictionary. And he took the Oxford dictionary and started memorizing. And before he went to US, the fellow did not know ABCD. Within 6 months, not that he put himself whole time into it. While doing his yajna yagadi and chanting karmas, whatever time available, he started applying himself to this language. He could communicate and understand English. And after 1 year, when he came, he started speaking English in America. Hello, Swami. How are you? How are you? Not how are you. Originally was typical South Indian. Rama, how are you, Swami? It was like that. they open the mouth wide, in South language people. And in US, they just don't open. They make it round. How are you, Swami? And the last few letters, they gulp it down. It's just the standard thing children often used to tell, how was the lecture? Oh, Swami. Not Swami. Me is eaten away. Awesome. M is eaten away. Awesome. Awesome. That's all they say. So he having returned, I met him after 1 year, he could do. They have this capacity of chanting. That is not enough. You may know the mantras. Upanishad is a part of Veda. So when you memorize Veda, you may memorize the Upanishadic mantras, but then this merely chanting this Vedic mantra, ignorance remains totally unaffected. Asamsprushta. Ignorance remains asanga. Even if you can chant the whole Vedas. One should not interpret these statements as that it is not necessary. I am not saying that. I am not saying that pravachana or Veda chanting is not important. It is important. What we are trying to tell you is it is a extremely beneficial means, but not an end in itself. One should not look at this chanting as an end in itself. Therefore, Shruti says, Nayam Atma pravachanena labhya. By merely chanting, you don't get it. Na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Memory. To have a good memory is a grace, is a blessings. And as the Bhagavan said in the 15th chapter, Matta smrutir gnanam abohanam. It is my grace, because which you have smriti, gnanam, and forgetfulness. Capacity to remember, capacity to memorize is a glory. Nothing wrong in it. This capacity needs to be cultivated when we study, because to do mananam, to do nididhyasanam, one should bring back all these teachings to the mind, mantras, etc., and the teaching. And since that's what it helps, it is necessary. Sometimes I have met some people, they grow so old, they listen to the lecture, and usually when I have a series of lectures, next day I just summarize 2-3 minutes or 5 minutes what we discussed yesterday. That fellow comes, he has been attending regularly my classes, very attentively, and comes there and says, Swamiji, within 5 minutes you gave the gist of the previous mantra, which you did yesterday, but it was not done this way. He had just completely forgotten what I had talked yesterday. Alzheimer's is coming. So memory is necessary to reveal oneself, ratihi, in the mantra artha, in the bhashya, in the teachings. But it is a glory. But what I am saying is, it is not enough to know the self. It is not enough to gain the freedom. Why? However great the memory be, this ignorance, self-ignorance will continue. Person may have capacity to remember, but that doesn't solve the problem of ignorance. Ignorance can go only by na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Medha means Grantha Artha Dharana Shakti, the capacity to hold the meaning of the Shastra also. Na Bahuna Shrutena. Bahuna Shrutena means listening. Or listening to Vedanta and also listening to many Shastras. There are some people who commit to memory. As I said, I had committed those days. I could chant the whole Gita from one to last sloka. And then we improvised our capacity. I could chant the reverse. Last verse first and the first verse last. Like that 2-3 chapters I could chant, memorize it. I had committed to that. Then committed to learning Vedas. Mahanarayan Suktam and this Suktam and Bhagya Suktam and all that we learned. And then we committed to other Shastras also. Because we had to study Vyakarana. We had to study some other things. So you commit to that. And more you study, there are some people who come to
Swamiji, network
various
is
disciplines.
poor. Your video is frozen.
Okay. All right. Minimize it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Swamiji. Yeah. Now is
Oh.
okay.
Is it okay, the video?
Yes, Swamiji. Yeah. Video also looks okay.
Okay. There is some prarabdha where obstructions keep coming. We just spend a lot of money here in Ahmedabad to fix up the line Wi-Fi, and then they promised us some 50 Mbps speed. But just before I came here, it was in Rajkot also I had to pay through my nose to get this Wi-Fi line, internet. And here also we paid. And just before I came, there was so heavy rain, the whole thing was flooded. And it is not getting repaired also. You keep calling and calling, that fellow doesn't come. Anyway. Now people commit to Vedas, people commit to memorizing, chanting of the Veda, and people commit to study of various Shastras. You know what happens? Studying any Shastra gives joy. There is a ukti saying, Vidyanande Brahmananda. Remember your school days. Even simple mathematics, arithmetic, being taught in 5th or 6th grade, if you like that subject and you could see the things clearly, you enjoyed it studying. It gives a joy. And if there is inclination to study more Shastras, it gives more joy. There are people who are erudite scholars in various fields. They are endangered species nowadays. Person having so many knowledge of so many disciplines. But nothing wrong in Bahuna Shrutena. It is good to study. It helps you to discipline the mind. It widens your perspective of looking at things. It gives you having some focus and concentration. But all other disciplines of knowledge cannot create a dent in ignorance. Forget about breaking. No ignorance can go by study of other disciplines. You may have knowledge of everything, like other than Naradji said, I know this, I know this, I know this. He knew so many things. But still he said, Shoham Bhagavat Shocham. Oh Bhagavan, I am still grieving. I am still insufficient, incomplete, unhappy, limited. Shokasya paramparam tarayatu me. Help me to cross over this ocean of grief. Same thing was told by Arjuna. He was a great scholar, as they say, a well-read person. He knew so many shastras. But Arjuna himself says, Nahi prapashyami mama panudya dirchhokamuchoshanam indriya. Avapya bhumau vasapattam ruddham rajyam suranam api chadipatyam. I may gain the kingdom of heaven, and I may gain all the kingdom without any rivalry, envy. Still, that ahankara, still that sense of insufficiency will not go. I know this. So please teach me. Shadhimam tvam prapannam. I have surrendered to you. What should you teach? Yat shreyasyat nishchitam bruhitan. That which gives me shreyas, that which gives me moksha, that which gives me freedom, that which helps me to discover the fullness that I am. Please teach me. Bahuna Shrutena. All other vidyas, it may enrich you in terms of your knowledge, or to some extent some social wisdom, but it cannot create an iota of ignorance, cannot be removed by those knowledge, because those vidyas are not opposed to ignorance. As Puja Swamiji used to say, you may be a Nobel Prize winner, Nobel laureate, but you will continue to be ignorant with reference to self. Even after being recognized as the greatest scientist of today for this unique discovery, which would help or will go a long way in helping the humanity in the field of medicine, etc., still the sense that I am incomplete, the sense that I am insufficient will continue. As I said, none of the vidya are in opposition to self-ignorance. They will not remove an iota of self-ignorance. Therefore, Shruti says, na bahuna, na bahudha shruti. Study of different disciplines of knowledge. Some of the disciplines may be subservient to self-knowledge. Still, like studying Vyakarana, studying some other Shastras, Nyaya, Tarka, etc. They are necessary traditionally, subservient to self-knowledge. But none of these subservient vidyas also will remove self-ignorance. Ultimately, what cooks the goose of ahankara is nothing but that fire of self-knowledge. Therefore, it says, Nayam atma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Please don't make any mistake that these all things are unnecessary. That also I've heard some Swamis talking. Don't keep listening too often to Shastras. Don't try to memorize the Shastras. Gita, press Gita is available in 5 rupees. That somebody said, Swamiji, I know whole Gita. 5 rupees. Don't, this is all not necessary. No, that is not the point. In Vedanta or in our classes, whenever something is dismissed, something is negated, please understand it is negated or dismissed from the standpoint of view of the end, that is moksha. Even karma is negated, sannyasa, by taking to sannyasa. But that doesn't, the idea is not that one should not commit to karma. One must do karma. Nothing wrong in it. All this dismissal or negation is only from the standpoint of sadhya, the end. These are all the means, and they are useful also to prepare the means in terms of antakarana shuddhi and antakarana ekagram. It helps you. It is necessary. One should do that. So please, as I said last time, don't throw away the baby along with the bath. It is a bath water that is to be thrown away, not the baby. So it is even money is a means. Use it. Nothing wrong in it. Having money and using money and keeping money. There is a value in India that this Mahatma is great who doesn't keep money. Even learning English. Suppose some of us who were educated in their vernacular languages had to study English. But English itself is not bad. But English itself will not remove self-ignorance. Therefore, today we may have to say also, not by learning English and not by speaking English you can gain the self-knowledge. That doesn't mean you don't study the English. You must study if you want to study from Swami Dayananda Saraswati. And that is the Vedanta, by the way. Others is Devanta in Swamiji's language. So you have to study English. Nothing wrong in it. Negation is primarily, usually, from the standpoint of end, moksha. Without knowledge, moksha will not come. Pakasya vannivat gnanam vina moksho na bhavati. In Atma Bodha it says, like to cook the food, the ultimate means is, for the food, cooked food is fire. All satellite karmas are necessary. You need a plate, you need a vessel, you need to cut the vegetables, you need to clean the grains, you need oil, you need masalas, everything. But what cooks is fire, nothing else. So it is why he says masalas will not make the food, masalas will not cook the food, then vessel will not cook. That doesn't mean they are not necessary. Gnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. Similarly, this negation is from the standpoint of the end. Everything is useful, provided if it is done with the clarity that this is a means for the means. The means is antakarana shuddhi, which saumanasyatam, which will take you to the knowledge. For that, all this is means. Okay. Now it says, look at this. Well, then how it is gained? He says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedhaya na bahuna shrutena yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyaha. Tena, that person gains it. Who that person? The person who chooses the self. That person is gained. That Shankaracharya ji writes, Yama esha vidvan vrunute praptum ichchati ena varnena labhyaha Please silent all. Somebody is talking. Haritseji, please mute them. Tena varnena labhyaha. And who is the one who chooses? That Shankaracharya writes, akama. You can choose the self. You gain the self. But to choose the self, you have to be akama. Choose the self means who desires for the self, who wants to know the self. That is called choosing the self. Understand? This is in a way contradictory statement. In a sense that you don't choose a desire. You don't will a will. You don't choose to love somebody. You don't choose to hate somebody. You don't choose to go out. You just have comes, and then fancy comes. And you decide to go with it, then that becomes a desire, a strong desire, and you go. How come then Shruti says you have to choose Atma? That means you have to desire for Atma. You know, in a way, this desire is a peculiar desire. Moksha Ichha, what we call it, is a peculiar Ichha in a sense. If you can categorize all desires into two categories. In one category, there are umpteen desires, nth number of desires. And in another category, there is only one desire. Mokshecha is only one desire in that category. Rest are umpteen. Why? All other desires are desire for something which is not I. Money, power, position, place, person, relationship, whatever it is. All desires are desires for something other than me. When it says choose the self, that means a desire for oneself. So understand the difference between all desires and this desire, moksha. And as Puja Swamiji would say, since the self is already gained, this desire is not a desire in a way. In a way, it's not a desire also. Because praptasya prapti. Still, we give a discount. Let us say it is a desire. How do I choose the self? Just now I said, you cannot choose a desire. You don't have option to desire and you don't have option not to desire. What does it mean by choosing? He says there is a beautiful word in Sanskrit, Yame Vaisha Vrunute. Vrunute. Esha Vidwan Vrunute. Vrunute means Praptum Ichchati Tena Varane. Ichchati desires to gain, desires to obtain, desires to achieve. Now look at this verb vrunute. For a want of better word or due to the limitations of English language, vrunute I have to translate as desires. Yame vaisha vrunute tasesha atma vivrunute tanusva. But we Indians know this one word. Very famous Swayamvara. Sita Swayamvar. Sita Swayamvar. Draupadi Swayamvar. Swayam Vrunute iti Swayamvara. Swayam, they themselves, means herself or himself, used to choose the life partner. Now look at this. In every Swayamvar, there were a number of people aspiring for this woman. Like Sita Swayamvar also, there were many men. And in Draupadi Swayamvar, I'm quoting this famous example. There were many men aspiring for her. And she also was looking. There was a tradition. When the girl comes, she is brought to the stage with Varamala and she is being introduced to all of them. She is looking at everybody. And among them, some of them appeal to her also. This fellow is the Maharaja of this place. Their CV was read in short CV was revealed to her. So she knew, and I'm sure that girl or the bride must have been thinking, this is a good match for me, that is a good match, etc. And then there used to be some competitive examination also, like Arjuna's case, hitting the fish, standing on the balance, etc., which was moving ahead. Once the wish or the examination criteria is fulfilled, or even while she is being introduced and she looks at everybody, and once she puts the mala in the neck of a person, that is called Varamala or called Varanamala. Varanamala means what? At the exclusion of everybody, this is the person. That is the meaning of Vrunute. Not simply choosing, not simply desiring, not simply wanting. That doesn't give that meaning in English. Vrunute means one who chooses to gain the self at the exclusion of everything else. I don't want anything but the self. For this main goal, I may want something else. Like as I said, to know the self, I have to study, etc. But for that, I may desire to study Sanskrit. I may desire some yoga to keep the body fit. I may desire some pranayama to keep the mind fit and to help me sometimes when the mind is disturbed, etc. You may do what all you have to do. You may desire to do some puja, Ishta Devata puja. You may desire to have some mantra japa. You may desire to have kutia on the Ganges bank. That's okay. But all other desires are subservient to this desire. That is called Varanam. Understand? Yame Vaisha Vrunute, like a woman doing Varamala. No one but only this fellow. There may be so many available. She will not look at the other guys also. And just give the mala and then she goes with that person. That's what happened with Draupadi. Arjuna was in incognito in a Brahmana Vesha. He looked like a Brahmin. And Draupadi was Kshatriya. And that too Kshatriya princess. That too one of the great king's daughter. And on the top of it, one of the most beautiful women of the time. Miss Universe of the time. She was gifted with certain perfumes in the body. She was gifted with natural smell, which used to spread for almost 1 yojana. Fragrance. Her body emitted the fragrance. Long hair and all description is there in Shastra. Draupadi. And all the kings failed. They had come with a desire to have her. And suddenly a Brahmin gets up and finishes the job, hits the fish, and she puts the garland over. That caused anger, anguish, frustration, all kinds of emotions, various emotions in them. And they could not handle those emotions. Therefore, it turned into anger upon Arjuna and they wanted to kill him. Draupadi, Arjuna, Bhima says to Arjuna, Arjuna, you go, take her and go home. I'll take care of all of them. He was waiting for this opportunity. And they didn't have those ayudas, because they had come for, not for warfare, they had come for marriage, so you don't come with your weapons and weaponry for just to show something you may have. This fellow uprooted one tree and like a washerman washing the clothes, Dobigat, he didn't think either they all ran either and thither and saved the life and ran away. Draupadi just went behind him and never bothered to look back who was there and what was his or stature and prowess, etc. Over. That is called Varnam. Just as he pursued Arjuna, I will pursue my moksha. That is Yame Vaishya Vrunute. That means one who has a Tivra Mokshecha, Tena Labhya. Then only self is gained. Mokshecha, Swamiji would say, is a very, very jealous woman. The one who will not tolerate a single woman another woman in the life of her husband. Very jealous. Mokshecha is the most jealous. It is not one of the desires, one of the fancies, one of the convenience, or not even one of the priority. It is the priority. That is called Yame Vaishya Vrunute. Tasyaisha Atma Vivrunute Tanum Swa. To him, the self reveals itself. Now, if you look at us, if you just look at the whole humanity, though we say there are fourfold Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, in a way there is only one Purushartha. Purushaihi Arthyate Prarthyate iti Purushartha. It appears that person is desirous of some Dharma, another one is desirous of Artha, another is desirous of Kama, and rare few are desirous of Moksha. No. There is only one Purushartha, that is Moksha. Desire to be free. Each one of us are seeking freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from sense centered on I. Freedom of sense that I am unhappy. A freedom from I that is limited. Freedom from I that is inadequate. Freedom from I that is insufficient. Freedom from I that is limited. You want to be free. Who doesn't want? Not knowing or out of sheer ignorance, I impute the cause of my limitations. Why I feel limited, or why, forget about the feeling. Since it's a mithya, so I use the word feeling. The fellow thinks really I am limited. Why I am limited? Why I am unhappy? They impute for one's unhappiness, they impute one's limitations to something other than oneself, outside. I am unhappy because of this person. I'm unhappy because I don't have this person. One is unhappy because he has this person. Another is unhappy because he doesn't have this person. Therefore, the one who is unhappy for having the person says, I love you, but I love you also. And person who thinks that I'm unhappy without that, he welcomes that person in their life. You impute the cause of one's being unhappy, limited, inadequate, insufficient, etc. on the world outside. You want to restructure in terms of haves and have-nots. in terms of pravritti and nivritti, in terms of possessions and giving up. You think so? That is the Purushartha. Whole world is busy in restructuring the whole world outside. Everybody is a mumukshu. Who is not a mumukshu? When it is said, I want nothing but moksha, Varanam is two-step. The person, this mumukshu, discovers the fact that all this restructuring, all those possessions and giving ups, all those haves and have-nots throughout the life which I had it and I gave it up. I possessed it and I gave it up. All this never made me happy and complete forever. It did give me some happiness here and there, but it didn't solve the problem that I want to be happy at all places, all times, under all circumstances. Paramam Sukham that I want, I have never got it. And that Param Sukham is Atma, is some moksha. That is a vague idea. The mumukshu is the one who says, I want only moksha. That's fine. That is the first step. At the exclusion of everything, I have understood the futility of all other pursuits. I have understood the limitations of all other pursuits. I have understood the incapacity of all pursuits, all possessions, all relations to make me happy permanently. They are incapable. And being born in India and having exposed to Hindu culture, fellow feel there is something called moksha by which I will gain it. What is moksha is not clear. Some may think doing bhakti and going to Bhagavad Dhama, Vaikunth Loka, Saket Loka is moksha. Some think no, Bhagavad Darshanam is moksha. I have to see the Bhagavan and do moksha. Some may think I have to do tapas and gain powers and this will become mukta. All kinds of ideas people carry. That's fine. That's natural. Why fine? It's natural. But to understand that moksha is gained by knowledge only. I'll be free only by knowing the self. All these problems are there because of self-ignorance, not knowing this. In other words, Yame Vaisha Vrunute means conversion of mumukshu into jignasu. It's a big step. You need blessings. There is this clarity that the whole problem of me being unhappy, me being insufficient, incomplete, limited, is because of self-ignorance. The self is limitless. Self is Ananda. So I have to not to gain the self, but I have to know the self. This is a very big step. It looks quite simple, but it is not. Especially in India, people keep telling as they say, Tom, Dick and Harry knows, Atma to Sachidananda hai. Self is Sachidananda. And it is very popular stotra, Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am Chidananda Rupa. I am Shivaha. Ananda. This fellow doesn't think even for a moment that if I am Ananda, how come I am feeling Ananda? How come I feel unhappy? That means there is a problem of self-ignorance. I have to know the self. that connections doesn't take place. So-called spiritual seekers are lost in a second stage of Maya or final stage of Maya. This is Maya. It just doesn't strike. It is so vivid. At least that much thought should come here. Arjuna wanted moksha and Bhagavan taught him, the why should I, that means I must study Gita. Forget about Upanishad stories, Narada and other stories. Devatas going, or even Katha Upanishad, Nachiketa, etc. Gita is still popular. But so many seekers I have seen, it doesn't strike to them. It is okay that I want moksha, but then Lord himself, when he was asked for moksha by none other than his most beloved person of the time, Arjuna, he taught him, I need to study Gita. I need to expose myself to Gita. That doesn't come. They do what? Asana pranayama and meditation. Most of them get into this cycle of some meditation and some katha and some upasana and some Bhagavad darshan, all kinds of ideas there. So yame vaisha vrunute also means one who becomes a jignasu. One who is a jignasu, that person alone gains up by doing everything else other than study of Shastra. Doing yogasanas and pranayamas and dhyanam, and you may get all other siddhis, some accomplishment, spiritual power, you may get. The healer nowadays, healing power. One fellow has come to me now. He says, I have power to cure cancer. My God, what a big game, tall claim he is making. I am going to cure cancer of the people. Please help me to organize one cancer camp. I said, okay. I said, what is the proof that I have done this in Pune and so many Maharashtra cities? He said, he claimed. And I told him, okay, send me a brochure or something, what you're doing. So far, he has not sent. And he's coming day after to meet me. He said, where to organize, how to organize, you guide us. I said, how many you expect in a first camp? Yeah, from 9 to 4, there is a camp. We'll talk about lifestyle and some meditation and all that. Minimum 10,000, Swami. I said, did you had vodka or what? Not simple. But 10,000, where even a crow doesn't know you in Ahmedabad. You in your lifetime, you have never visited here, but I want to cure 10,000 people. And he was confident enough. Even that siddhi cannot impact anything, even cannot create a scratch on self-ignorance. That thinking is missing. So many chamatkaric Mahatmas are here, giving their blessings and curing the disease and helping people. But never ever they think that I should study Gita. They have followers in thousands and millions. They say also Gita is our great Granth. Gita is ultimate Granth. They say, but never have mindset to expose that is really Maya. They just fall short of the grace. No clarity about anything. And somehow, as I said, the common sense doesn't work. Arjuna studied, Rama studied Vasishtha Ramayana, Yoga Vasishtha Ramayana. I should also study. Our whole tradition is of study. Mahatma study. And if you tell them come to class, no, Swamiji, kuch kriya batao. Show me some activity. I want to do seva. This is time wasting, just studying. You have to do something. Orientation for karma. That is not Atma Varanam. Yamevaisha Vrunate, one who chooses Atma. What that sentence means, one who chooses to know Atma. That is Adhyara. Yamaiva Yeshaha Vrunate. Yesha Atmanam Gnatum iti Vrunate. Tasya Atma Vivrunate Tanum Swam. So, moksha needs to be converted into jignasa, gnatumicha. That is Varanam. And to that person, self reveals. This again is in a way contradictory. Self is always revealing itself. Aham iti ya samvidu jrumbhate. Balyadishva pichagradadishu tatha. Sarva swavastha swapi. Vyavrutta swapi. Anuvartaman. It is pervading all the avasthas at all the times. It has been revealing is I. That is the problem. Self reveals itself means one who chooses the self discovers that I who is revealing as mother or father or a son or a brother or sister is Chidananda Rupa Atma, Purna Atma. That is self-revealing. Means when he has chosen to know, that means he will go to a teacher and study. And when he or she with this exclusive desire to know, keeps studying, naturally one day the self reveals itself to be Purna Atma. Therefore it says, Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tasesha Vivrunute Tanum Swam. To him, to that person, self reveals its own nature. It means get revealed. We'll see this little further tomorrow and go to next mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.